I'm Ashton Hare, and this is this week's edition of the Pioneer Podcast. I'm here with Jessica Barfield to talk about her article, Russia Invades Ukraine as History Repeats Itself. So, can you talk a bit more about the riot in 2014?
Okay, so in 2014, the president of Ukraine at the time was invited to what was called like an Eastern Partnership Summit. It was an attempt to bring closer ties with the European Union, which at the time he was very pro-Russian. They had been supported by Russia at the time, so he felt very pressured to take their economic assistance versus actually uniting with the European Union. So Ukrainians did not react well to that. They decided to riot in the capital, where it escalated in February, where 77 lives were lost as they tried to gain control of the riots, and the president ended up fleeing, and that was when the attention became focused on Crimea, and Russia decided they were going to try to take that over instead.
Do you know where he fled to?
I do not. I really didn't look into as much information as I probably should have of where he went after all of that.
I'm just curious.
As far as I know, someone said that, like I had read that they had found him in Russia years later, but
that makes sense.
That he made his way back to Ukraine, but was just like really, like, yeah.
Which president was this? What's his name?
Yanukovych.
So
Yeah.
he was a Russian-aligned president.
Correct. Which didn't end well, so.
Why do you think Russia is targeting the civilians?
I think Ukraine is still, civilians included, not wanting to be aligned with Russia. I feel like because civilians are probably also equally standing their ground as they did under the other presidency, he's probably just trying to take control however he can. That's my guess.
Are you going to do an article over Biden attending the NATO meeting, maybe?
That would be a good one, yeah, just to kind of see where he stands, because most of what I was speaking with military, like I said, they know more than we do, and they didn't want to say too much, but both of them agreed that they believe that the U.S. will become more involved, and it'll become more than just a Russia-Ukraine conflict. So I am very curious what happens at the summit that he goes to.
And when was that again?
What, the summit?
Mm-hmm.
He was invited, I think it was coming up this April, like this month.
So, in your personal opinion, do you think China will invade Taiwan?
Yes and no. From what I have read, China has tried to kind of tiptoe around the alliance with Russia at the moment. They don't seem to really agree with what they're doing. However, they don't want to instigate Russia. And you know what I mean? They're trying to like really walk a fine line. But at the same time, there's a lot of speculation that they're using what Putin is doing to kind of take the time to plan their own attack on Taiwan, because that's something they've been interested in years. So whether they're going to use this opportunity or not, I guess we'll have to see.
Okay, thank you. I'm here with Ian Torres to talk about his article, Ukraine versus Russia, the Economic Conflict. Can you talk a bit more about the future effects of the sanctions in Russia?
So it's interesting because when I was talking to the economic professor here, he kind of like explained that if we keep imposing the sanctions towards, basically if we don't do a good job on being specific on who we are sanctioning, it's going to start affecting the people, and that's when we're going to make people angry. So in the future, we're probably going to make people angry, and that's when people turn to extremists. And we have to be real careful with that, because then they're going to sell this whole idea of we can make Russia better, but at what cost?
So as the gas prices rise, how do you think Americans will react?
I think they're going to be angry. I think gas prices are probably one of the most politicized topics right now. And so, I think if you look at it, you're just going to make people angry. So elections are coming up, and so I think we're gonna see an effect on that. Even though maybe it's because of the conflict, we're gonna make a big deal about gas prices and elections and the president and all that politics.
And interject. Now you start to talk about, well, we have high gas taxes on top of the gas prices. So there's opportunity for people to engage in discussions domestically about things that maybe weren't as obtrusive, such as the gas tax, before gas prices were, I guess, what, 80% as high or whatever they were.
So how do you think Europe will react without Russia's oil and natural gas?
It's a very interesting question because, well, if we don't have a resource per se, if Europe doesn't count with that, with those resources, then they're gonna look at the competitors, and so in most cases, those prices are gonna be more expensive for the people, and so they're gonna be looking at higher prices for the same products. So I think it's going to make them mad as well.
Alright, so what made you want to write this article?
I think there's a couple things that we're not looking about this conflict. One is like why it's affecting us, and overall I think we talk about sanctions a lot, but we don't talk about how it affects the people, and so I kind of like went off at the end on why we have to be really careful with sanctions. And I think there's a lot of like people that don't really know how they can be affected by sanctions, and yeah, and overall I think my biggest reason for writing this article is because of gas prices.
Thank you. I'm here with Burton Summers to talk about his article, Professor Earhart on Ukraine. So how do you think this war will end, with Russia or Ukraine? Or with like nobody really? Like just...
I don't know. I would lean on Russia probably winning because they have more resources. But like Earhart said in the article, he said, well, Russia's probably going to win, but they're probably going to wonder, was it worth the cost of, all these people dying? And, Ukraine they didn't slouch. They fought. They've been fighting back pretty hard. So, yeah. I think it'll be they call it a Pyrrhic victory.
Can you elaborate more about, with all the resources lost, why do you think Russia would still invade? And I think they still are going to lose a bunch.
I agree with Earhart. He made a comment about how Putin, he grew up in the USSR age of Russian history, back when Russia was the Soviet Union. And like a lot of Russians, he was kind of left disillusioned as the war, or as the Soviet Union came to an end. Basically, he compared him to Donald Trump in the form where he thinks that Putin's trying to make Russia great again. Like, he was like Trump was attempting to make America great again. From what I've learned, if you can keep the people happy, then
or scared.
Or scared, yeah, that too. Thank you. You can stay in power as long as you want. And my personal theory on the whole thing is I feel like this is like a last stroke from Putin to try and gain some legitimacy, because he hasn't been doing well these last couple of years. I do think he is trying to find, it's like a desperate ploy to try and keep himself in power, I think.
Do you think China will invade Taiwan, in your opinion?
That's always the trick with hypotheticals. You don't really know what's going to happen. But, China, with Chairman Poo, as they like to call him sometimes, they might do it, because they've been not nice.
Who's a better president? Xi Jinping or Donald Trump?
Oh God.
I've got a Chinese guy I work with, and he said this. We have a closed system, and we produce that guy, and you guys have an open system, and you produce this guy. Who's better? Because Christmas is always
I'd
China's
say
not a good
Z
place.
because, say what you will about, what happened, say what you will about China, but, say what you will about Z and, his, what's wrong with his government, but he's running it effectively, I'd say.
I'm here with Kai Davis to talk about his article, More Sanctions Are Probably Going Against Russia. Alright. So how do you think the world will react without Russia's resources of petroleum?
I mean, honestly, I think the people are really fed up with it at the moment just because of how the gas prices have gone up. But I feel like at some point we all gotta adapt to it, and we're all just gonna have to deal with it in the end. So I think, yeah, we're just gonna end up adapting to it.
So Russia has the better military power, but Ukraine is holding its ground. Why do you think that is?
Well, I mean, hey, if someone just kind of intruded on your land, like no announcement, and they were just like, it's a special military operation, then, and at the same time, I don't think Ukraine is like, the thing is, if Ukraine doesn't do anything about it, it just shows that they're giving in and they're giving what Russia wants. But Ukraine wants to remain independent, as of like how they've always been since 1991. They just want to be independent.
Did it surprise you that they've only been independent since 1991?
Honestly, yeah, it really does shock me. 'Cause I mean, there's so many other different places that were doing things during the 90s free and willingly, like to their own accord, but hearing Ukraine getting in 1991, it's like, that's awfully late for a country to start on its own. But then again, there are also other countries that are still working to gain independence to this day.
So, to talk a little bit about the sanctions, how do you think those are going to impact Russia a little bit more?
Well, everyone's scared of Russia at this point. They got the weapons to take out any country and just like that. So I think, it's terrible to think about it like this, but the more we separate ourselves, the more they may possibly become desperate and start acting a little bit crazier. It's really not good to think about it like that, but I feel like that may be the point that we get to. They're just gonna become desperate for love.
So, to move on to your other article, Ukrainian fashion, war leaves us worn. Can you describe the clothes a bit more?
So there are many different brands out there. A lot of it looks more like how you would appeal to like Gucci, Louis Vuitton. Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, it appeals a little more to like the expensive brands like here in America or across the world, of course. But it's very abstract and artistic. Many layers of cloth and fabric are included in it, and it's like a little more local in a way.
So what caught your eye about their clothes?
Just how, really like how I mentioned, like how artistic and abstract it was. Also, I mean, the price.
Is it expensive?
It's very expensive.
Yeah.
But yeah, mostly just the style that it was directed in, and also their streetwear too. Their streetwear really caught my attention because it's like they have it's kind of like they got like matching sets like to go with an outfit.
Okay, that's cool. Can you describe that a little bit more? The streetwear? For that?
Yeah, like I I don't remember what the brand was. I know I wrote it down in the article, but it's like there's more like denim. It's like crazy patterns in like denim overalls, jackets and hoodies. It'd be like more grit. It's like the streetwear is like, it's kind of like gritty in a way, like gritty, grimy, kind of just like I'm cool. I got swag type of clothing.
Okay. So, have you seen any of these types of clothes here on campus or even in Oklahoma?
Honestly, not to my knowledge. Mostly everything nowadays is like Nike, Adidas, the typical brands you see.
Okay. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Oh yeah.
I'm here with Ian Torres. He's going to talk about El Pionero.
Yeah, so El Pionero, I talked to Kyle. Actually, Kyle approached me and he said, hey, I think we should have this idea of, communicating the same stories that we do for the people that prefer their news in Spanish or just don't understand English very well. And I thought that was a very good idea because there's a lot of articles that could be of importance to a lot of people out, in the community, in the Hispanic community especially. And so, I think we're starting to get the formula down, but at first it was very difficult because you kind of have to go through a lot of things like literal translations. And there are some articles that have more of the artistic writing and more of the meaning in English than in Spanish. So it's been definitely a challenge to translate some of those words into Spanish, but it's been fun, and I hope the community likes it.
So are you working on it by yourself, or do you have other people working on it?
Yeah, so I work I work with Kai, I work with Kyle. They give me the stories, and I just translate them. I try to do a couple stories per day, and so yeah, I just give it to them, and then yes, basically I'm working alone on this, but I still have a team. I still have the support of them.
So how many stories do you have to translate per week usually?
Usually, I think it ranges from 9, 10 stories. It's not like the full length of the Pioneer, but I think it's the most impactful stories. All the stories from the Pioneer are important, but I feel like we're getting the stories that Spanish speakers might be interested in. So,
Have you heard anyone on campus talking about it?
actually, I've heard. Yes, actually, I don't know if I heard it from Kyle. I don't know if I heard it from someone. The Spanish professor here at Triple C. Okay, so she told me there were a couple students that were just chatting, and then she saw them holding the newspaper, and they were reading it in Spanish. And so that just makes me happy that maybe we're getting through audiences that we wouldn't be able to get otherwise if it was in English.
Thank you.
Of course.